Hello and welcome to the Gemhawks YouTube channel. I hope you're having a beautiful day today. For the free wire tutorial today, I'd like to share with you my easiest ever Year of the Snake ring. This is absolutely suitable for complete beginners to wire wrapping. So let's head down to the board, take a look at the project, and then let's make a ring together today. So I have a couple of examples on the hand today. I've got one with a little nugget bead from my jar of random beads, and I've also got a glass round faceted bead. So honestly, the smaller and flatter your bead the better, but I have worked with an 8mm pure round just to show that you don't have to have any specialist beads. You can pretty much use what you've got in stock. So to begin with, we have a 12-inch length of 1mm or 18 gauge wire, and we just need to give that a quick smooth through, especially that central section. So let's just get that nice and toasty warm. Now it pays to have a bead in mind when you're starting this design, as we need to make a shape to safely hold that bead. So I've got this 8mm round faceted carnelian, just from my jar of random beads that I'm going to use for today's tutorial. I'm going to grab in my multi-step bell making pliers, but you could use really any round form, including a pencil, something that's about the same size as your chosen bead. Now, if you are using a bead that is more of a nugget shape, then you're going to need to consider the shape of the bead that you're using, moreover than just making a nice round form. So in the middle of your length of wire, and again, this is 1mm or 18 gauge wire, and I'm going to use probably step number 5 on my bail makers just to create a rounded form right there in the middle. So let's just cross over both of those wires just to give us a place to start. Now you will be able to reform that should you need to. So let's just see how close that is. That fits really well, so that's a good start. We'll then use your favourite chain nose pliers just to turn the ends away. You can have a little bit of a space between those two parallel lines, but not too much of a space, because we're making this a super easy design today. So we'll be weaving those parallel lines quite tightly together. We're not sitting any channel set beads today. I am just going to make sure that I'm happy that those wires are coming away at a good angle. Another thing that you can do once you are absolutely delighted with that shape and form is you can add a little bit of hammering to the very beginning, to the round form itself, and also to just the first little bit that comes away. So do make sure that you're happy. That's got a slight kink to it, so I'm just going to open that out, make sure that those two pieces are nice and straight, and then I'm just going to hammer them just a little bit to add some residual strength. If you are worried about tool marks that you create by hammering, then you can always file them down. I've got a 4-sided nail buffer just here. Which, if you work down through from the roughest to the smoothest, you can actually get quite a nice finish with that. And those things are around about 4 for 99p. I'm sure you can pick them up at dollar store too. So I'm just going to smooth through those tails just to make sure that they stay nice and fluid. Now I'm going to use just a scrap of 0.4mm or 26 gauge wire to begin by adding a little bit of detail around half of this little section here. So what I tend to do is just very gently prise open that little circular form we just made, and I'm going to pass through the centre. Again, I've probably got a scrap of around about 12 inches on my board, probably a little bit more than I need, but a good place to start. And what I want to do, and this is completely optional, is I want to rotate that tail of wire halfway around the circular form just here. So one of the easiest ways that you can do that, in fact, is to kind of start halfway along and just push that wire up between those two round forms. You can also push the leading edge through and then you just hold this however is most comfortable for you. I'm conscious that I'm trying to show you how to create a nice, neat, tight coil, but what you can do is just scooch that around to wherever it is most neat and tidy and most comfortable for you to work with. What I'm looking to do is to fill half of this circular form with the coating of wire. So to make a little spiral that goes all the way around. So I'm just going to wind all the way around until I get halfway along, and I'll meet you back in a second. So I've wound my silver coloured 0.4 or 26 gauge wire all the way around from the neck to halfway along. What we're going to do now is work from the reel. It's the same wire, 0.4mm or 26 gauge, but before we start winding around the frame again, we're going to add our chosen bead onto the wire and just scooch it down out of the way. What we're going to do now is start again at that neck section by rotating around and around that hardened frame that we've created. So you can start a little way along if you prefer, and just again fill all of this with lovely tight coils. So the cut end starts here at the angle change, and we're going to work towards the meeting point in the middle there where we stopped and cut away the wire a few moments ago. So just keep going, trying to keep as tight a tension as you can on those little spirals that go around the framework. We're going to head down to the board now, and I'll show you how easy it is to finish this design off. So you're still connected to your reel of wire. Time to bring that bead into place. So I'm just going to sit it down. Now the finer gauge wire has come off the top of my design here. So I'm going to just allow that wire to come all the way over the top to one of those sidebars. It doesn't really matter which one you choose to begin with. What we're going to do is to start winding around, and we're going to go for 5 really neat tight coils. Now I use my fingertips just to bring that under control until I have those 5 coils. Just push that all the way up into the gap, and then bring your 2 wires side by side. So to bring this into true, you can just give that a quick smooth through to make sure it's nice and straight. And I'm going to use a weave which is a 5 and 2 weave. Now that's really easy. We're going to wrap 5 times around one of these stems or ends of wire which come away from the circular form, and then I'm going to wrap twice around both of them together. So I'm going to just draw that together quite firmly, but leave a tiny little gap because you'll want to take that wire over the top again and then bring the tail up between those 2 strands of heavier wire. I'm just going to scooch that up into position, and then I will continue to wrap 5 times around the upper on your screen now. And it could be either or, it doesn't really matter. I've just gone for a repeatable pattern. So that is already 5. I thought I'd only done 4. I'm going to scooch that down into position and make that really nice and firm. Now, as you're weaving, your 2 wires might start to sort of move around a little bit. You can get that under control by just giving them a little bit of a squish once you've completed a couple of segments. So continue all the way along and leave around about an inch of bare wire at the far end. So keep going until you're quite close to the end. I've left about 1.25 inches on the end of the wire here because I've got quite a lot of weaving done. So let's head down to the board for the next step. As I mentioned before, that wire might get a little bit twisty, so just take your time, try to get it nice and straight. You can control the 2 wires side by side just by gently pressing that down. What we're going to do on the end, just going to splay those 2 very softly apart. A little bit of warmth goes a long way when you're treating wire. And I'm going to make sure that both of those cut ends are flush and smooth. They don't have to be the same length. Now I've finished my pattern where I've been weaving twice around both and then 5 times around just the 1 wire. But to add a little bit of decoration, what I'm going to do is finish by coiling around just the one side, and that's the side where I've had the 5 of the 5 and 2 pattern. So every time I'm dropping one of those little loops around the wire, I'm just pushing it down with my thumbnail just to get a really nice, neat and tidy finish. Now you don't need to take this all the way to the end, because basically if you take that wire to the end and then you start to coil, the coiled wire just pops off the end anyway, so I tend to leave a little bit on the end without any weaving or winding whatsoever. So let's just go a couple more rotations and then we are going to finish off. So just scooch those up so they're nice, neat and tidy. And then what I'm going to do is just take that over the top, trim that away neatly, get your spool back out of the way for use later, and take the end so that it sits down flat against the surface of the heavier core wire. So when you're working with a fine wire like 0.4 26 gauge, when you come to the end, if you just rotate those pliers, and I'm not pressing hard, but just rotate the pliers around in the direction of the cut wire, you'll get a really lovely strong connection and it'll be nice and smooth and flat down. So before we go any further, I'm going to choose a mandrel. Now this is around about the same size as one of my fingers, so I'm just going to use a straight mandrel today. However, you can use a tapered ring mandrel if that's all you have. This just happens to be around about the right size. So let's just pop that out of the way for a second. What I'm going to do is to put a little bit of warmth through those wires, again making sure that they're nice and flat. At the head end of the design, what I'm going to do is to pinch very firmly and just draw the head up and away so that it's kind of coming up at a jaunty angle from this straight part. We're going to take the straight part and wrap it around the mandrel. Let's just get that wrapped all the way around. So what we're looking to have is for the head of the snake to come up and away from the shank of the ring that you're making. So if it sits a little bit proud, don't worry. Now what we're looking to have is the deeper side of the bead on top, because that will be slightly more comfortable in wear. If you do have the opportunity to use a flatter bead, it doesn't have to be round, it can be oval, it can be a nugget, whatever you've got in stock really, then that will be more comfortable to have a shallower stone in that start point. So let's just flip that up the other way for now. And we're going to just be a little bit imaginative with what we're going to do with the tail end of the snake. Now you can bring that all the way around in a nice tight coil, but I think today I'm going to have this going up the back of the hand. If I just show you one of the examples, I cut these a lot shorter, which means that when you wear them, you've got this lovely little tail bit all scooched around, and that looks nice and neat and tidy. But I think just as a variation, I'm just going to put a few little curls in this piece. What I'm going to do then is remove the mandrel from position and grab my round nose pliers. And I'm going to make two separate coils, and I'm going to bring them back in this orientation. And then I'm just going to stack one on top of the other. Now, whilst I'm doing that, I'd love to know what your favourite snakes are. Now, I'm no herpetologist. I'm no person that don't know anything about snakes, really. I've handled very few snakes in my life, just a boa constrictor when I was a very small child. But my favourite snakes are the gaboon viper, or the southern or eastern hognose snakes. I just think they're adorable. If you have a favourite snake, please do tell me in the comments down below. So I'm just making classic spirals, and that one with the wire overlay you'll see looks quite attractive, but you can just scooch that up in exactly the same way. Now I'm going to overlay that on top of the other spiral so that it's just got the one tail. Why don't we try this on for size? So I actually really like how that looks. If that's too much for you, you can of course work with a slightly shorter piece of wire. I hope that you have enjoyed the easiest ever year of the snake ring design. Really, really simple, totally accessible to beginners, doesn't take that much wire, just takes a little bit of time. And actually it's a really, really good way to get to learn the basics of wire weaving. You can use up any little beads that are going to work in your design. I think I've got a mookaite carnelian and a glass bead that I've worked with today. I've really enjoyed it and I hope that you have too. Don't forget to tell me what your favourite snake is, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Bye for now.